at 1:02 p.m. Brian, can you say the prayer for us, please?
Good afternoon, everybody. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you today in thanks and in gratitude for all the many blessings that you place into our lives each and every day through your grace. Thank you, Lord, for the beauty and wonder of your creation and the life-giving rain. Thank you, Lord, for being with us each and every day. Thank you, Lord, for our homes, for our families, for the opportunities placed before us. Thank you, Lord. We ask that you be with us as we discuss the affairs of our tribe and be with our people in the four directions and those that are in need of you most. Thank you, Lord. And we say these things in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, we have the agenda. Are there any additions or changes?
I have an addition, a personnel issue for executive session at the end. A personnel issue with executive session.
Oh, okay.
Are there any other additions? Mic's not working.
Motion to approve the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Second. Been a motion second to approve the agenda as amended. Discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 6-0-0. Reading of the minutes, 8/21/19, General Council.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the General Council meeting minutes of 8/21/19.
Second.
Been motion second to approve the minutes of 8/21/19, General Council. Discussion? Any objections? No objections, motion passed 6-0-0. Reading of the minutes, 8/22/19, mid-monthly meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the mid-month council meeting of 8/22/19.
Second. Been a motion second to approve the minutes of 8/22/19, mid-monthly. Discussion? Any objections? No objections, motion passed 6-0-0. Reading of the minutes, 8/23/19, Treasurer's Report.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report meeting of 8/23/19.
Second. Been motion second to approve the minutes of 8/23/19, Treasurer's Report. Discussion? Any objections? No objections, motion passed 6-0-0. Ratify 5 signature, approve additional budget modification for Garden Cemetery project.
Mr. Chair, was this amount above and beyond what we gave them to pay that labor? Or is this the labor part?
This,
We made a motion to pay them labor,
you just chair, so.
and then is this an addition?
I don't think so.
No.
Is it?
What page is that?
2,000
Yes.
doesn't cover 8 hours a day for 5 people.
So, to answer your questions, when the request came in to hire a day labor to help with this corn, because the corn was ready,
Yeah.
we came to the table and all discussed that we wanted to go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, they went in to the field and not all of it was ready. And so they went to work with what they had, and they still needed a labor force to get the rest of it, which required an additional 2,000. And during that time, we had relatives laying in state, so they did a 5 signature on that. But we went around and we asked everybody if they thought that was a good idea, and that's how that went.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know it was an add-on to what we already voted to give them.
Mhm.
This is add-on to, okay.
Correct.
No,
So
that's fine with me.
They did get all the corn in. They dried it. They harvested it. They also there's still a lot of tomatoes out there, peppers, watermelons, squash. There was surplus, and Coley and I have been trying to stay abreast of that, keep our eye on that. They've been doing a really good job, and the stuff that's ripe and ready to go, we told them to take to and give to the seniors or the children over there at the youth shelter. And then we also said that at some point to work with Mr. Coons to inform our tribal membership, you know, to come and get that.
Okay. All right.
That's where we're at with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Motion to ratify.
Second.
Been motion and second to ratify budget modification for Garden Cemetery project. Discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 7-0. Ratify approved travel OICAG for Roland Warner.
Motion to
Where is that?
ratify.
Hold on. Which one is that for?
To go to
Go somewhere.
Virginia.
Is that for a DT?
Yeah.
I got a hold of Miss Canoyer this morning through the text, and I told her that it probably wouldn't be a good time for me to leave the table. That I'll just have to forego that. So we don't have to. We can just let that go off. We don't need that.
You just found out it was near Baltimore. That's why you didn't want to go. All right.
Ratify 5 signature approval travel for QICAG for Roland Warner canceled.
Thank you, Council.
Ratify 5 signature approval travel NOFA for Victoria Ketchian.
Move it, Mr. Chair.
Second.
The motion second to ratify approval travel NOFA for Victoria Ketchian. Discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 7-0. Ratify approved travel Life is Sacred Behavioral Health Conference for NETC. Did you move it?
Yep.
Second.
Been motion second to ratify travel Life is Sacred Behavioral Health Conference for NETC. Discussion. Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 7-0. Where was that gonna be? Rapid City. Okay. Ratify 5 signature Resolution 19-193 approving general counsel contract.
Motion to ratify.
Second.
Been motion second to ratify resolution 19-192 approving general counsel contract. Discussion? Any objections? No objections, motion passed 7-0-0.
No.
Tribal Resolution 14-63, where the tribe established a moratorium for adults only in that scenario. About 2 weeks later, on April 16th of 2014, the council passed Tribal Council Resolution 14-75, where the adults language was rescinded and in place all previously enrolled applicants were held in a moratorium. And then later that year, on August 20th of 2014, the council passed Tribal Council Resolution 14-114, where the moratorium was extended indefinitely for all people less than the natural 1/4 threshold held under the constitutional standard. So moving forward from that point, and with the consideration of what was occurring in the tribe at that time, on February 18th of 2015, the council passed Tribal Council Resolution 15-52, asking for the secretarial election to begin. And this was based on a Tribal Enrollment Committee memo that was requesting such, dated on February 18th as well. So again, assuming what must have occurred, because I wasn't here or sitting on the council at that time, there must have been some joint meeting between the Tribal Enrollment Committee and the council on that date, and based on what the committee was telling the council passed that motion to begin that process. So then moving forward from that February date, on April 7th of 2015, there was some Tribal Enrollment Committee statistics that were brought forward. And just to give the council and the audience this information, in that time period that I was discussing earlier, there were 398 new enrollees since the criteria was changed. 261 of those were using blood quantums from another tribe, and 37 of those were relinquished from another tribe, therefore justifying what was, I guess, being discussed at that time. So before we move on, I think what I'm trying to show the council is that there was quite a bit of consideration from not only what the committee members were bringing forward, but also the sentiment of the community, because it's my understanding that in that secretarial election, the language that was changed was not intended to basically create a free-for-all for Winnebago tribal enrollment. And because of the large jump in the number of people who were applying in that time period, then also the jump in the overall enrollment, and the vast majority of those people coming in either being relinquished from another tribe or eligible to be enrolled in another tribe, that got basically the tribe and the council to the point of where the secretarial election needed to move forward. So with that being said, later that year, on May 13th of 2015, the council passed Resolution 15-52A, which asked then for the secretarial election to be started officially. Then about a year later, the council sent a letter through the chair, who was Darla LaPointe at the time, requesting for a withdrawal from the secretarial election process, and that date was June 30th of 2016. But that was not made with an accompanying resolution. But in my conversations and in my research with this, what I came to find out is that because of the process that needed to take place, and because the Bureau was placing timeline roadblocks, if you will, The council at that time, I guess, wanted to just forego the Bureau's process and do something on our own. And then from what I was also told at that point, then the Bureau was convinced or basically found the time which they previously stated they didn't have. But irregardless, June 30th, 2016 is where this situation has basically come to a halt. So how that brings us forward is, in the meantime, there were several questions posed to the community through various formats, either by direct mail or they had public forums, which were poorly attended according to the enrollment committee's communication back to the council. But from the information that they were able to receive, especially from the direct mail, there was an overwhelming sentiment among the tribal membership to change the blood quantum from the 1/4 to something different. Now there are varying ideas and varying understandings of what that was supposed to be, but at the same time, nothing was ever done. The main point that I want to get to in this is twofold, basically. One is probably the most important. Since the moratorium was put into place based on the information that the enrollment department has, as well as the colloquial information that they have, simply because they stopped keeping track due to so many people being frustrated in the process, there are a minimum of 150 families waiting for some type of decision. And several of the people in that waiting list are children, and of those people in general, most of them are barely under the threshold. So we have people living, working, being a part of the community, growing up in the community as part of the tribe, who do not officially get to become part of the tribe simply because they can't meet the 1/4 threshold under the current language. And so with that, the second part, which I think is also important, is in the secretarial election efforts that were put forward, one of the questions that was to be asked is, in a secretarial election, to remove the necessity for a secretarial election, which in essence means that the tribe can make its own decision at that point forward without asking the Bureau. And so I think that there still needs to be quite a bit of discussion had on how the tribe determines who belongs to it. But in the second part of what I was mentioning, I do think that we do need to move forward with at least the part of the secretarial election that removes the requirement for the secretarial election. Because I believe rather firmly and strongly, as well as I know several and many, many other people actually for that matter, that we as a tribe should be the only ones determining who belongs to our tribe.
Exactly.
And so once we get to that point, then that's where we'll have the discussion on what blood quantums we have, if any, what determines a tribal identity, how people are going to be enrolled at what point and with what threshold, and all the other considerations. Because with that being laid out now, I know it does get kind of confusing. Several of the people, and because they are mostly children, there are ICWA concerns, there are IHS concerns for people who are not within the comprehensive health care facility system, and there are other issues as well that enrollment must be determined for. So I think it's in our best interest, at minimum, council and members of the tribe in the audience, to at least begin the process for the removal of the secretarial election. And then at that point, we can decide and have all kinds of discussion, but it's our discussion and no one else's.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we remove the secretarial election process. I don't feel, like Brian said, that the Bureau of Indian Affairs or the government should be telling us who we can enroll and who we can't enroll. That's one of our few sovereignties that we have left. let's exercise it. I would move it, Mr. Chair.
Second that.
Been a motion second to remove the secretarial election process. I think that's how you phrased it, Kenny. Discussion?
I know that, excuse me.
No,
I'd like
Mr.
to be
Chairman.
recognized, Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oops. Well, you know, just to go along with what Brian was saying, I just want to give you some results of what the surveys were that the previous enrollment committee, what they discovered through their efforts to try to comply with what the tribal council wanted at that time. Unfortunately, I wasn't a part of that, but I did go back and do my research so that I wasn't standing up here blowing smoke. There were 3,200 surveys sent out to the tribal membership. In total, 709 were collected and validated. 38 were spoiled due to non-compliance of the validation. An estimate of 600 surveys were undeliverable because there were no proper addresses and they were returned for unexplained reasons. But through that, the information that the previous, the information that the previous committee gleaned from that, and I do remember being at that meeting, and the tribal council felt like 300 or of the total 709 that were validated wasn't an adequate number of participation from our tribal membership. I just like to remind council that we don't even get that much participation in the primary election, and sometimes not even in the general election. So when you get 709, that's a pretty good deal. Because so anyway, the things that they want, they still want to be able to use the other federally recognized tribes blood quantum. And at that point, 167 of them wanted that blood quantum lowered to 1/8, just so that you have the information. And they didn't, 394 of them said no, they didn't want to be able for other people that are relinquishing from another federally recognized tribe, to seek enrollment with us. So I thought that was interesting, and that at least they had made the effort, and 709 tribal members does make a difference because, like I said, a lot of times we don't even get that many people voting in our primary and general election, even though we have, 1,000 or 1,200. The other thing I wanted to say was that I agree with the removing of the secretarial election portion of it. However, I do have concerns that if we get too broad and too vague, there could be a problem, because then there's a free-for-all for the enrollment. And as an enrollment committee member, our marching orders come from all of you. And what the code sets in place, how you develop the code. So I just want to make sure that, when we endeavor to do this, that we don't make it so broad that anybody can be, say we have a Nigerian come in and want to get enrolled. You know what I mean? They don't have any Winnebago blood, but they just want to be here, and somebody vouches for them someplace else, and they can get enrolled into that other federally recognized tribe business. So with that being said, the other thing that I'm concerned about is the current moratorium. We already had adults get enrolled under the current code, and so I think it's unfair that we're holding all these children hostage to not being able to get enrolled at this time. And so if the council would at least moving forward, let the enrollment committee enroll those members under the current, you know, where they can use other federally recognized tribal blood to get enrolled here, because most of them are residents here. And right now they're hanging out there like, you know, they don't have a country or a place to be because, you know, they're just not enrolled anywhere. And so I have, you know, concerns for those people. There's people that have been meeting separately, and their kids, you know, they're being raised with Winnebago beliefs, and just because they're not 1/4 for us, they're not being able to be enrolled, and people are holding out for the moratorium to be lifted. And I know I have my opponents that don't want to enroll people with other federally recognized tribal blood, but I think it's unfair because we've already had adults that did it. So let's be fair to the children at least. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and your sentiments is that kind of how this came about, is that a couple of children were placed with non-native families in I believe the Sioux City area, and one of them was abused, where passed away, and then they were part Winnebago, part Omaha, part Santee, and that's where that discussion became to allow those include the other Indian blood, and then thinking about those children and how can we help them get us under our umbrella, you know, our protection, and then and I guess it should have been stated in there, you know, that was basically for the children, and then a loophole was in there where a lot of the adults that had more degree of Indian blood than they had Winnebago, but because they included that, they got in. You know, they were more Santee, they were more Omaha, you know, whatever. And then the Winnebago blood was the lowest point. But because of that, the way it worked, and they were all jumping in, basically because of the benefits that the Winnebago tribe offered, you know. And you know, per cap, and higher education, and medical, and all of those things. And so then that's why a decision was made to issue that moratorium. You know, and then some of the things that was discussed is that, you know, either lower it down to at least an 1/8 or 3/16 Winnebago blood to do that. And that would eliminate some of those ones that didn't have that enough Winnebago blood. Like I said, it's, you know, we should decide, you know, our membership, we have that right, and we have that sovereign right to do that. I'm done.
Mr. Chair, I think if we call for a vote on doing away with the secretarial elections, we can move right into that moratorium part of it.
Okay.
I agree with you. All them some kids need an apology from us for not getting clothing allowance last year.
Yeah.
Shame on us for not doing nothing.
And then I know some of my counterparts object to what my sentiments are that I serve on the committee with. But my thing is that I grew up in a time when we didn't even have a clothing allowance, when we didn't have a per cap, you know. So what's the difference? You know, we're not greedy people as far as I know, you know, worried about that almighty dollar all the time, even though that's what makes the world go round. So maybe the clothing allowance has to be less one year when we have more kids or something. Who knows? I don't know, but I mean, that's all stuff for later discussion. Let's not leave these kids out here with no place to call home. Thank you.
Those people in the audience.
I sat
Up here,
on
Wanda.
the enrollment committee as chair. Well, you guys can hear me.
They can't see
The reason that we asked for that moratorium was that we were getting a lot of Omahas, coming up here wanting to be enrolled because we were getting that per cap. We were getting, you know, this for the children and that for the children and whatnot. And this is one of the reasons why they did the moratorium. But I too am worried about the children that aren't being enrolled. We decided that when they did the moratorium, that the newborns, the young children that haven't been enrolled here and could be enrolled, should be enrolled. And that's what we did. We did enroll those children, and I don't know who stopped it, you know, from the newborns getting, because they had enough Indian Winnebago blood to be enrolled here. And I don't know who stopped it, but it was never that way. So that's another thing. So I was on that committee for 8 years, and this is one of the things that we were worried about, you know, that it would come to this one day. Who is Winnebago? Who is, you know, how do you count that blood? How do you, you know, I'm proud to be 4-4. There aren't too many of us anymore. But if you need to, and you must, because we're losing our tribe because of our children marrying into other tribes, and if we're not going to be able to count that other Indian blood, we're not going to have a tribe anymore. So that's my concern.
Brian?
I'll let him go first.
I want to thank you guys. So with this, with the kids, because like I said a couple weeks ago, or last week ago, you know, when they had that meeting, I was when Brian brought this up. So I agree with that. I agree. You know, like they said, you know, a lot of kids are sitting out there, like with nothing, and you know, man, that gets to me. You know, that's one thing that bothers me is these children. And then, you know, man, you remove that moratorium or however you guys gonna do that. I mean, you know, man, like you guys decide whatever. You know, man, we need to set an age limit on that. And so, man, just do it for the kids. And so, you know, like these adults, you know, man, people my age and younger, you know, they had enough time, you know, man, to take care of themselves. You know, and so, man, because I know a few of them right now, you know, man, they're 50, 60 years old, man. They're not enrolled here, but they've been around here, man, but there's been enough time for them to do that. So, you know, and then, you know, that subject, you know, man, it's touchy. You know, man, it's a real touchy subject, man. It gets heated sometimes. You know, man, people, you know, man, I don't know, man, they want to voice your opinion, you know, and I'm glad to see this many come down here. But, I mean, I say, I mean, you know, man, you make a decision, man, you make it for the kids. You know, man, that's the only thing I'm sitting on right now, and I will, you know, man, I'll sit there and I'll fight for that. And so, you know, I just want to thank you guys for listening to me.
And part of the research that I did, there was some information that was issued on April 11th of 2016. It doesn't have an author of who it is, but it says Winnebago tribal enrollment from that date and that period. So in April of 2016, the total tribal membership was 5,260. There were 1,715 on reservation and 3,546 off. There were 3,884 adults and 1,376 minors under 18. The people who used other Indian blood to become enrolled since that last secretarial election, which allowed it in 2009, was 582. So from 2009 to April of 2016, 582 people became enrolled members of the Winnebago tribe using other Indian blood under the threshold that was allowed from that election. Of those persons that relinquished another tribe to use the Indian blood, there were 62. And the total enrolled members since November of 2009, when that election was had, was 1,117. There's one more number on here, but
that number of 1117 is what I want to bring to the council's attention, because as the treasurer from 2008 to 2010, basically, I was responsible for calculating the tribe's stimulus that we paid out. And when I saw the numbers of what we used to have as tribal members versus what it became following the secretarial election, it was shocking and surprising to see it jump by over 1,000. And then finally being able to find this, it's in black and white. But the whole point of this, and what we need to get to though, is we understand why the moratorium existed, and if it's not clear, it's because there was sentiment among the tribe in a majority about people who are eligible to be enrolled somewhere else becoming Winnebago. Now, I'm bringing this entire issue forward, but I do have to play the devil's advocate in this, because I do feel that that point of view does need to be mentioned, even though it may not necessarily be represented here in this room today. We do have tribal members who believe that if you are eligible to be enrolled somewhere else, you should be enrolled there. That has to be stated, that has to be said. But besides that, we have a motion on the floor that I think needs to be amended. Kenny and Mel, with no disrespect, it isn't as simple as saying to remove the secretarial election. We have to petition the Department of Interior to hold the election to remove it. I know it sounds a little redundant and a little, like, kind of stupid, honestly, but we have to have an election to remove the election.
Yeah, because it's already in the Constitution.
Yes. So if you guys will amend your motion to begin the secretarial election process to remove the secretarial election, I think that's the better approach.
So move it, Mr. Chair. Fill out that first
Been motion, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
My question's to Brian.
Yeah.
Y'all go ahead and got it.
Good.
Y'all go ahead and got it.
Good.
Does anybody out there know what I said?
Says what, you said what something, I didn't hear the last part.
Y'all go ahead and got it.
And it's good.
That's your name?
What the, yeah.
How do you say it?
I don't speak fluent Winnebago.
Okay. Did anybody out there catch that?
What's the point of this, please?
Do you understand?
I'm asking somebody something in Ho-Chunk.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Wait, I got a point to make, sir. Just let me make my point and then we can go on.
But this ain't a language class.
I know, but there's a point to this, sir. Please, allow me. Just indulge me for a second or two.
Excuse me, Rowan. I appreciate what you're trying to say.
I'm talking. Are you gonna let me talk?
The floor's yours.
What I am trying to point out is there's more to being Ho-Chunk than a number on a piece of paper. What's that? Is that even being taught anywhere on this reservation?
Through all the schools.
And
And the senior citizen center.
In these homes of these young parents, there's supposed to be teachings
That's a social issue, Robin.
that goes along with being a Ho-Chunk.
You're culture shaming, and I feel ashamed for you. Because not everybody has the advantages you have.
So I'm
And if
trying
you wanna
to.
talk, if you wanna start talking that, if you wanna start talking about that, then there's a lot of things that people do that aren't Winnebago.
And that's
They've
my point.
They've adopted stuff from everywhere and every tribe.
I'm talking, Mr. Chair.
You're
Will
talking,
you allow
and you
me?
want me
Okay,
to shut
go
up.
ahead.
Allow me
That's all
to
you
talk?
want.
Go ahead and talk.
Then the point that I'm trying to make is there's traditions, there's customs, there's beliefs, and there's values. And we're missing that piece. And it's important because that's supposed to be who we are as a people. And that language is like a part of that. Now this quantum thing, that's a that's enrollment. That's enrollment. And in this enrollment, if you're gonna be a part of this tribe, then you should know something about it. That's important. Otherwise, who are you? You're just a generic Indian with an enrollment number. And that's what I wanted to point out, because that's important. That's all I gotta say.
Well, I want to respond to what you said. You're sitting there and you're culture shaming people for not having the opportunities. Yes, you are. And the way that you're saying it is disgraceful. You know, you're supposed to be offering up your help in that respect. You know, and Tiffany's sitting there getting upset because she thinks I'm attacking her husband. That's just ludicrous. That's childish. And I'll let you know that right now, because the way you present yourself, you're disrespectful to women. You're disrespectful to your elders. Where is that at? Where's your cultural belief in that?
Okay, let's stay on the subject. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, for those comments that were made on, excuse me, that could be made, I guess, perceived as being on my behalf. I thank you guys for that, but understand I take no offense to what was being brought forward, because I, of all people, understand I can learn to become better, and I will continue to strive to do that on your behalf. And so, but at the same time, I think what needs to be recognized and what needs to be said in this is that I'm going to be real honest with everybody here in this room. When I brought this forward and when I was listening to the tribal members offering me their points of view on this, and it did go all over, like I said just a few minutes ago, it is not adequately represented in this room, but we do have members of the tribe who feel that this is not something we should do. But at the same time, I think the majority feels we do need to move in a direction. Being as upfront and as real with you guys as I can, I knew I was going to get all kinds of mud thrown at me. Names called, my grandparents weren't Winnebago, whatever you have. But at the same time, because I know who I am, I know where I come from, those types of comments weren't really going to go anywhere, because I see this as an opportunity for me to lead us toward a resolution for not only these children, but for the people of our tribe who are currently marginalized. And so, thank you guys for the comment and the sentiment. And to Roland, I take no offense to that, because it's a call for me to become better, I guess, and I will. But at the same time, if we can get back to the order of the day, there's a motion on the floor to hold the election, or to call for the election, to remove the election. And I call for the question.
Mr. Chair, and I revised my motion to comply with what he said, but we're right back to, I should have thought twice, we're right back to asking the government if we can do this. Let's do it and tell the government what we did.
Kenny, believe me, that's totally my point of view as well, but under the Constitution, this is what's required.
Okay.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, for remember, Kenny, a few years back when they proposed the secretarial election, they had those two items on it. Was a change in the enrollment and then changing the process for the secretarial election. There were two on it. And that question came up. And I agree that we should change it. Exercise our sovereignty. Any further discussion on it? Mr. Chairman.
I just want to add a comment that let's make sure we let's don't leave anybody out. Then let's not just go to this 104 that's been denied. We got to find out how many are really out. If it gets down to a 32nd, is that what we're going to do? To leave one big whole chunk at home.
Okay, well, that'll be the next step.
Yeah.
First, we have to remove the secretarial election requirements and amend the Constitution. and then we can have our own secretary.
How long will that take if we vote on it today? Like next meeting?
The legal counsel needs to provide that, a notification to the Department of Interior, and I think it's 90 days.
There's a time version.
Yeah.
Just not sure.
90 days, and if they don't act on it within 90 days, then it becomes automatic.
Question?
Hello, my name's Tiffany Warner. I'm the chairperson for the enrollment committee. I was just out at the enrollment department on this program that they currently use. It's called Progeny. Okay, our recent director resigned, so we have our interim in there. She has to get rights to go into certain things on there. On that program, there is a application that says descendant of Winnebago. They do get a CIB, but they do not receive the benefits. That's something that's on that Progeny. This young lady has to, the 3 young ladies out there, they still need to this training to get done. We was trying to get all this stuff together for you, but as I said, she does not have the rights to get into this program, so we had to call Progeny to get her updated so she can get in there on certain things. Because we wanted to get you the numbers, how many applicants, how many were denied, what they were denied for, how many were enrolled each year, breakdown. So that is something that we are looking into, where if an application comes up, they do not meet the blood requirement, it would go down as a descendant of the Winnebago tribe. They would get a CIB, but they would not receive the benefits. Something I wanted to bring to the table. The current interim is looking at all that stuff. Like I said, we was trying to get this all together for you since we found out about this meeting. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 7-0-0.
Mr. Chairman. Okay, now that the decision has been made to begin the process to hold the election, to remove the election, that was one of the criteria that I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation here today. The second one is now where a lot of the comments that were made around the table actually revolved, and that is how do we begin to determine what it is to be a member of our tribe. Now, typically in what has been done in the past, and I need to step back slightly, the committee was supposed to be invited to this meeting, and so for those of you that are on that committee, I thank you for taking the time to come here. And if you were not actually officially notified, I apologize, but it was my understanding that you were supposed to be told that your presence is requested. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you for spending this amount of time that we have to have at the beginnings of this discussion. But to get back to the point, now we need to start having the real discussion on how we determine who belongs into our tribe. How do we begin to formulate what our identity is defined by? Now, what we have in front of us, it's a simple number. It's a mathematical fraction or a percentage. But if you feel like some people do, then we need to have, I guess, a more stringent test toward what that is. But again, no decision on that component is made before this table unless someone wants to move that today. But I don't think anyone is prepared. So I asked the tribal membership in general, what does it mean to you to be Winnebago? My personal point of view, it is more than just a pedigree. But that's the beginning of the discussion. Now that we are capable of moving forward, taking our sovereignty in our own hands, removing the secretarial election process, hopefully, I mean, maybe, who knows, maybe the people will vote it down and we're stuck there. But now that we're moving forward, let's begin to have a meaningful discussion on how we begin to determine who belongs to our tribe.
Who's all on the enrollment committee? 1, 2.
And me.
There's 3 of us here. There's 5 altogether.
Okay.
Who are the others?
Monica and Thelma. Monica Flores and Thelma Whitewater.
Thelma had to go meet her. They let me know that they was not going to be here today.
Okay.
Like I said, we was never given a notice that we were to be here. We just heard. I watched on Facebook, on YouTube, and there it was. So we're just trying to get all this information together for you.
No, and I appreciate that, and you'll also see from that YouTube video, it was part of the motion I made was also to invite the committee. So I'm thankful that you guys are here.
I just have a question. I've been organizing these enrollment meetings, and I'm not an official member of the enrollment committee, but I stand with other mothers in this community that have children that have no home. They're born and raised here, and they identify as Ho-Chunk, as Winnebagos. And to, you know, speak to your point, Rollin, these same kids are at EduCare. They are at Winnebago Public or St. Aug's and Little Priest, where it's part of the mission to know the culture and language. So they're being taught how to say their name, ask what your name is, they know their clans. And so they're being raised as Ho-Chunk children. So just, again, not to forget about them. And part of that, you know, we always worry about the children, talk about the children. Well, we need to start including them in this. The other piece to this is why not lift the moratorium? Is that a place to start? Because what we're talking about right now, it's not going to be a quick fix. We need a quick fix right now. This has been going on since 2016, that this enrollment idea has been coming up in different council meetings, and no one has spoken up about it.
Sorry, Cassie, it's
2009. 2014. So we've been sitting on this for how long? How many children have been born since then that can't be enrolled? You know, just the more time that goes on, the more people we're leaving out. And I think we all agree that it is about the children. So let's have a quick solution and lift the moratorium, and then go on to studying what other tribes do to include other people. Because I guarantee that moratorium isn't going to, it's not a fix all for everybody, you know, but it's a start.
Okay, moving on to the next item, number 2, tribal members' request. Dorothy, Liz.
Nona can't be here. I actually don't want to be streamed unless I'm sitting in a canoe. But we're just here to request the second half of our buyout. We received the first half in 2015, but that was like 4 years ago. Do you need more information?
I haven't sat here since 2015. It was my understanding it was resolved, but if not, then okay. So
No, we didn't say settled. Settle for it.
I'm telling you my point. So
Okay.
I assumed that this was taken care of over 4 years ago.
Nope.
Mr. Chairman, on December 7th, 2015, the chairman made a motion to honor the last 3 buyout individuals at half the agreement. We gave them half of what their buyout should have been, each one of them. It should have been, the buyout should have been $87,000 to completely pay them off. We paid them half of what they had coming. I don't recall anything stating how long it would be before they got the other half. I don't even know why it went half at this point. December 2015. I don't know why they went half.
Oh, because you guys couldn't come up with the money. So I said, well, give us half
Well,
now.
I think we identified it.
I think you guys were supposed to get some pipeline, that gas pipeline money. But that wasn't gonna be until the next year.
Because my question back then was, where was the money gonna come from? And the three sources were Liberty Bank, proceeds of labor, and HCI dividends. Those were the possible three areas that money could come from at that time.
What, Mr. Chairman, what was this? What buyout?
The council was paying people to leave their job, to quit their jobs. If they wanted to quit their jobs without, and get paid for it, that would be it. That was just a way of getting out of being employed with the tribe anymore.
That was a substitute for 401.
Mm-hmm.
Was that okay?
They should have had the money then back then, if that's what they were gonna do.
Pardon?
Should have had the money back then to cover it. I would think.
Well, I identified the money. Because the motion previous to that paying them half was that a council member made a motion to bring back the stipend tribal council members as full-time members using the proceeds of labor funds effective immediately. Vincent Bass seconded the motion and it passed 8-0. Then the motion after that was to pay them half of their buyout, and it passed 7-1-0. There's nothing in writing or no commitment to not pay them. There was no commitment to a deadline that they had to, of how long they had to wait.
From the treasurer.
Pardon?
From the treasurer.
Well, it's not fair to the treasurer because he didn't know nothing about it.
I wasn't there that day. Sorry.
Yeah, there are a couple of them that weren't here.
I don't got a problem with it.
So you're saying you have the money to pay them?
Tanya, I always say we're not broke. I always say that. We aren't broke.
Dorothy, do you have the amount you're looking for?
I have it.
I didn't bring my paperwork with me, but see, I was 21 years at $2,000 per year. It was like 42,000 for me.
The breakdown.
And for Liz, I'm not sure.
The breakdown was 43,000 for Dot, 19,000 for Liz, 25,000 for Winona Armel.
And Winona had already received a portion of hers, a quarter of it.
Just a quarter?
Well, she did hers before us,
Oh.
so she was already paid
So
a
what
part
they're
of it.
owed, Mr. Chair, respectively, is 43,000 for Dot, 19,000 for Liz, 25,000 for Winona. Does that sound right?
Well, half of that.
After that, okay, it'd be 12,500.
So, Dorothy, you received half of 42,000, is
Mhm.
that correct?
21,
And Liz, how much did you receive?
19.
half of 19,
And she only received half.
9,500.
You didn't receive 19, you received half.
Mhm.
Patiently waited. They could throw interest in
Yes, let's, if you guys are cashy, just hand it over and we'll get out of your face. No.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to honor the requests of the 3 individuals to make them whole and to further authorize, I know you have to write wholly, to authorize the general counsel to draft language to finalize the deal.
Yeah, because actually there was never
And
anything
motion,
at
is
that
there a
time.
second? Second. And motion second to honor the request of the tribal members.
And to
Any
authorize.
discussion?
And to authorize
Yeah,
the
I
lawyer
just
to
want to
create the
point
contract.
out that this isn't opening the door for everybody to come in. This is one last thing that wasn't dealt with at that time. So a motion that passes to do this doesn't open the floodgate for anything.
I do remember that financially the tribe wasn't in too good a position, so I think that's why the discussion.
We asked for half.
Yeah.
What was the total?
Yeah, what's the grand total on that?
Half of
No, total.
half of 87,000. They only got half of it.
Any further discussion? Any objections to the motion?
Okay.
Question?
Money coming from general fund?
Yes.
Good.
Any further discussion? Any objections to the motion? No objections, motion passed 7-0-0.
Okay, I thank you so much.
I want to see you on two.
It's a long way.
I want to see you on 3 machines tonight.
No.
Okay, tribal council item. Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session on personnel matter.
Motion's going to exec.
I will second.
The motion second to go into exec. We're in executive session at 2:15 p.m.